Police officers of Reddit, what's the best case of instant karma you delivered to an butthole driver on the highway? I'm not a cop, but I saw this happen while I was waiting for the bus. It was nighttime and it was raining really hard. This guy in a Mustang runs a red light and immediately gets pulled over by a squad car. Over the loudspeaker, the cop ordered the driver to get out of the vehicle and put their hands on the roof of the car, which the guy does. Then, nothing. The cop just left him there for about 30 seconds getting soaked by the rain, then used the loudspeaker again. Next time you run a red light during a storm, don't do it right in front of a cop. Dumbass. Then he just drove away. That might be my favorite cop ever. I witnessed a police officer, fully marked unit, get tailgated by some guy in a Hyundai. The cop moves over a lane. The Hyundai passes him and he promptly gets back over behind him, lights on. It was glorious to watch. Not when I was working, but I was in some heavy traffic going into an event center. I noticed a squad car sitting on the median making sure people weren't doing stupid crap. Right as we are getting up to where the squad was, some jackass cuts across 2 lanes of traffic, cutting me off and going into a drive with a do not enter sign. All of this right in front of a marked squad car. I made eye contact with the officer as he put down his coffee and flipped on his blues. Flipped on his wee woos. This was more the universe delivering the karma than me, but still. At a traffic accident once, I was directing traffic, waving the on round the roundabout because they couldn't go straight on as the accident was completely blocking that road up ahead. One car pulls up to a stop directly in front of me, and the driver opens his window to ask something. He's completely blocked me now from the view of the traffic, so I move to the side and just shout, "I'm sorry, I can't stop to discuss anything. The road's closed. Move off the roundabout." He drives a few meters forward, blocking me again, shouting through his window. I don't catch everything he says, but it includes at the end something like an angry "why can't you just stop to speak to the people God are meant to be serving." A car then promptly rear-ends him, as he was blocking them from seeing me, and they didn't expect him to stop dead on an otherwise clear roundabout. That's why I made sure when I wrote it up the insurance companies would know who to blame. Official vocab guideline states we no longer refer to these incidents as accidents, but collisions. Had a suspect fly through a school zone at 103 miles per hour. Needless to say, he instantly hit the brakes when he saw my cruiser at the corner. I'm a border patrol agent near a few 2-lane highways, with limited opportunities to pass due to all the hills and curves. I will regularly pull over old people driving motorhomes at 45 miles per hour and 65 miles per hour zones. The reason being is they have a line of 20+ vehicles behind them trying to pass them. One couple I pulled over were particularly pissed off they got pulled over. When I told them there was a line of cars behind them trying to pass, they got all huffy and told me I wasn't a real cop and to go frick myself. Their records came back clean, so I sent them on their way. About 20 minutes later, I see them on the side of the road, with smoke billowing out the back of their camper. Me and another agent pulled in behind to help them. As I pulled the fire extinguisher out of my car, the old lady passenger was like, "Help." He dropped his cigarette in the back. I went in the back of the trailer to help the old man battling the blaze. I managed to put out most of the fire inside, but it had caught the insulation or something, so the fire was on the outside of the camper too. The old man asked if I would give him a hand with it. I said I don't know. I'm not a real firefighter. I will regularly pull over old people driving motorhomes at 45 miles per hour and 65 miles per hour zones. You are a prince amongst men. The heavenly choir sings hosannas in your honor. Guess what? Not a cop. Anyway, so there I was driving along merrily. I had just dropped my older son off at school and had my youngest in the back. All of a sudden, some douchebag comes sliding into the front driver's side of my truck. Just slams the crap out of it. He stops. I stop. I'm shaking, completely freaked out and checking on my son. He was okay. So, I look over at Mr. Can't fucking drive and kinda stare at him for a bit, trying to get my brain to work. Then, the bastard backs up and drives off. My mouth hung open. I was shocked. A freaking hit and run. However, when the cop arrived, he walks up to my window grinning and holding a license plate that Kumston had left behind. Sweet justice. He didn't get away with it. My truck got fixed. All was well. It was a dark and rainy November afternoon. I was crewed in an unmarked car with my fave partner for this late shift which we were only an hour into. We were stationary, stuck in rush hour traffic just trading the usual insults to each other when wham, rear-ended by a taxi. If the face on the driver wasn't sweet enough when we switched on the blues, his fare told the officer who took their details that the cabbie was on his phone at the time he hit us and wasn't looking ahead, he was fiddling with the radio. Still have some muscle spasms in my back every now and again from that even though it was 5 years ago. He got hit pretty heavy with fines at court. We got a stopover in hospital and a little compo. I'm sorry to hear about your back injury. Mere money can't ever really compensate for that. Obligatory not a cop. Driving on a highway at night in the fast lane. Going faster than most of the traffic. But guy coming up behind me is flying. I start looking for a spot to move over but the road is busy and I just can't. He comes up behind me and starts honking and flashing me, but I'm waiting for a spot and still haven't found one. Finally get room to move into the middle lane and as he passes I just give him a head shake because he's being a knob. Well, doesn't like that. Moves into the middle lane. Slows down just to inconvenience me. Won't let me pass. He gets impatient with that and goes flying off. Well, in his desire to focus on me, he didn't see a cop pull onto the highway just a little ways ahead of him. Passes the cop without realizing it, and the lights immediately flip on. I felt like justice was served. Finally get room to move into the middle lane and as he passes I just give him a head shake because he's being a knob. I believe you mean a doorknob. My personal fave. Local cops had a scam. They put a 45 mph limit sign on an interstate where the limit was 55, late 1970s, and would pull over out of state cars ticket plus a cash bond. Want to see the judge? Sure. He's my brother-in-law. Cop pulls over a mid-20s black man driving a nice sedan with out of state plates. The young man comments that this is illegal. He is invited, in cuffs, to see the judge. The judge fined him $50. He refuses. The judge sentences him to 5 days in jail. No phone call, no lawyer, nothing. 5 days later the young man leaves and returns a week later with a number of his co-workers and arrest warrants for the sheriff and the judge. The young man was an FBI agent en route to his new assignment. Oops. Beautiful. Drive unmarked car on highway. Horrific traffic jam for 15 miles in construction zone. Motorcycle approaches passing everyone on shoulder. Move unmarked car onto shoulder to force motorcycle back into traffic lane. Cyclist screams move it. Jackass. Lights go on. Priceless expression on cyclist's face. Is this a Reddit green text? On patrol a kid decided to wheelie his bike past me saying haha you can't do anything. I sabs back geeker as he falls off the bike. I walk over, help him up and say well that was silly wasn't it? Oh, and speaking of doing nothing, here's a ticket, don't worry I'll give you the rest of the paperwork later when I tell your mum how much of a prat you are. Driving in an antisocial manner. Army eye roll. My dad's story. Riding his motorbike down a highway. Didn't specify where. Someone starts changing lanes right beside him and forces him off the road. He catches their license plate as they drive off like nothing happened. Next day he tracks them down via plate and confronts them about the situation. Did you hit a motorcycle on highways as yesterday? They deny all claims. He hands them the fine. That was me. I wish I had seen their face. Not a cop, but feel this belongs here. Pull onto freeway. Car barrels across lanes. Pulls up and rides my butt. Starts flashing lights and honking. Police lights come on behind butthole. I laugh hysterically. Not a cop. Not a highway. Still a funny story. Stopped at a red light near a railroad. If a train is passing, it stays red. Simple. We're on a curve and a hill, so I can see the problem. An older gentleman about 3 cars back could not, and decided to pass us. About 5 cars. At a red light, blocked by a train. Well, the red light marks an intersection, right in front of the City Hall police station. Did I mention this was right about lunchtime? He breezes through the light, followed by 3-4 flashing lights. Gotta say, made the 5-minute or so wait on the train amazing, because I got to watch them chew this guy out. Not a cop. but witnessed some awesome instant karma. Guy in a big jacked up bright yellow pickup truck is tailgating my roommate and I so hard I can't even see his headlights in my rearview mirror anymore. After about 1 block of this he decides enough is enough and pulls out into the left hand turn lane and passes us in the middle an intersection right in front of a cop that was waiting in the cross street. The red and blues came on right as we got through the intersection and I calmly pulled out of the cop's way. When the guy pulled over the cop pulled right behind him and almost sprinted up to the guy's truck yelling at him. Made my week. Not a cop but my father-in-law is one. He told me about this guy he pulled over that had a broken tail light. The driver was flipping out doing the whole I pay your wages. What's your badge number? Do you know who I am spiel? Phil just shakes his head and gives the guy a fixed ticket. And right before driving off the guy yells I hope you freaking get killed pig and speeds off blowing a red light and getting T-boned by a big rig. Car jumped a stop sign. Immediately T-boned them, windshield shatters and everyone is rattled but okay. The other driver opens their door and 2 empty beer cans fall out onto the road. The driver behind us witness gets out and says to me today is your lucky day, to which I answered with a blank stare and he says I'm the chief of police and there's no way you could have stopped. It's good to be the chief. I was the butthole who got immediate karma from a police officer. I was driving from Texas to Phoenix at night. I'm in right lane when I see headlights behind me. Driver is on my bus and I'm getting annoyed because I'm in the right lane, cruising at the speed limit. He continues to get dangerously close and then hard swerves into the left and accelerates quickly past me, but not before I stick my middle finger out the window and yell frick you. Tailgater was a highway patrolman. Pulled me over and gave me a ticket for an obscene gesture in public. Seriously. I don't think that was karma. You got trapped. First he tried to get you to speed up so he could give you a speeding ticket. Not a police officer, but saw someone get busted for doing something stupid. I was driving on the highway to work, in the left lane going with traffic about 75 miles per hour in a 55 mile per hour. All of a sudden this butthole gets in the left shoulder lane and speeds past me, as if I wasn't going fast enough. I was just thinking to myself, you butthole, I hope a cop busts your butt. About 10 seconds later I see a cop pull out of the side of the road and do exactly that. Man, that felt so good to see. Side note, I also saw a millionaire who often dressed like Batman drive in his Batmobile that day. My day was already made from the cop, but seeing that made my day twice as good. Not a cop, but I was driving home from the gym at night down a 2-lane road. There's a car on the side road to the left that turns left in front of me with barely any room, so I slam on my brakes and honk at them. Then cop lights turn on behind me and I thought I was getting pulled over, but he went around me and got behind the guy who cut me off. My mom's been a cop for 30 years. Back in the 80s my dad was driving through the city with her as a passenger when a car full of young guys pulls up. They're all holding up porno magazines, flashing the centerfolds at my mom, yelling how'd you like that. She flashes her badge back at them, says how'd you like this. They nearly shitty themselves and broke a bunch of road rules trying to get away in a hurry. I gotta use a better mobile app. 12 hours and this is the first I've seen this post. Talk about a buried comment. Anyway, not me but a cop buddy years ago. He was about 6 feet 6 inches and on the SWAT team. Real nice guy, but you would not want to frick with him. He's driving home from work in his personal car, a small sports car. Behind him is a 20-something fuckwit who keeps riding his butt, backing off, then speeding up to ride his butt, all in packed rush hour traffic on a 3-lane freeway. He's watching all this in his rear view, and he's waiting for the inevitable. Sure enough, fuckwit hits him. So they pull off to the shoulder, and Jim is just sitting in his car. Fuckwit gets out of his redneck mobile, shouting and cussing and threatening to kick his butt. Just before he gets to the car, Jim gets out. He unfolds himself and stands at his full 6 feet 6 inches, still wearing full black tactical gear, and just stares at him. Fuckwit literally pee himself. Wasn't the cop but would love you to buy this cop a beer. Was driving in a funeral procession for my grandmother. There were about 30 cars in total. As we are driving down a 2-lane road, a guy pulls into the oncoming lane and proceeds to pass all of us doing about 30 miles per hour over the speed limit. And when he reaches the front, he realizes there are 2 motorcycle cops leading the procession, blocking traffic on side streets as we go. One pulls the guy over. When we passed him, the cop had his finger about an inch from the impatient driver's nose and is obviously shouting at the top of his lungs. Made a whole bunch of mourners very happy. You don't frick with the father finger. Main road, not a highway, still instant karma. I was directing traffic around the scene of an accident when a cyclist decided to blow through my intersection. He gets posterized by some Honda Accord and naturally I prepare for this crap storm. Before either myself or the cyclist could process what happened, an older gentleman started reaming him out while he is still on the ground, informing him that he saw him run the stop sign. He's lucky he didn't damage the car. He's an idiot and that he should say nothing and be thankful. This gentleman in his 70s said everything I couldn't say and then some. I swear to God, around here cyclists' average IQ is like 12. I constantly see them cycling in the crosswalk while there are pedestrians, then go back to being a car, blowing through red lights and stoplights, trying to cut off buses and emergency vehicles, going the wrong way down one-way streets, and using dangerously bright, literally blinding, lights aimed at eye level. I am not a police officer but work with transportation. These stories reminded me of a time I was helping direct traffic at an area we had a water main break. So I got 2 lanes going to one behind me, so I'd let one lane go for a bit, stop the let the other lane go. About 20 cars back I can see this prick in a BMW hopping back and forth to whatever lane I'm allowing to go. So he's finally creeped his way up to second in lane. I am letting the lane next to him go and he tries to cut over on someone. The moment he does, I put my hand up and stop him and let the other lane go. Hahaha, he was freaking infuriated, I could see it in his eyes. He then tried to get over into the lane I was allowing to go and I got to give him the ol' frick off, you're going nowhere. When he finally did get to go, he stared me down as he drove by, lol, frick that prick. I mean, you really can't blame him for driving like that. They tell you at the dealership to drive like you are the most important person on the road when you buy a BMW. Not a cop and not on a highway. Tucson, AZ. About 22 years ago, I'm sitting at a red light in the left-hand travel lane. To my left is the left turn lane. Lane splitting between those 2 lanes, and on my left is a Tucson PD motorcycle officer patiently waiting the green, which comes. He is making the motions to proceed but hasn't moved yet when this utter butthole comes blasting through the cross street, blowing his red at like 60 miles an hour. The speed limit is 35. I gape and mutter holy crap as the guy races through the intersection. The cop and I exchange a shocked glance. He holds out his fist, the one that was on the throttle a moment ago. We fist bump, and he flips on his lights and siren and takes off after the guy. It was glorious. Was driving regular traffic patrol, see this guy pull onto a freeway. He barrels his car across all the lanes to the fast lane and slams on his brakes behind a car. He starts honking and flashing his lights, screaming at the top of his lungs. I pull up behind him, flash my lights on and watch him have a conniption fit. I'm not really sure why, but the phrase conniption fit actually made me laugh. Not a cop, but where I live, people tend to run red lights fairly often. I was sitting at a red light in rush hour traffic heading home, first in line. The oncoming lanes have a green light for left turns. The light turns yellow, then red, and someone runs it just after my light turns green to go straight. I go forwards and stop in the middle of the intersection because they're about to hit me. I lay on the horn. They continue turning left. As I'm leaving the intersection, I spot red and blue lights in my mirror. There was a cop right behind me at the light and he went after the bad driver. Pretty sure he got a big ticket. Not a cop, but best one I have seen was on my way home. There is at an intersection that is posted no left turn. I get stuck behind the butthole who didn't see or is ignoring the sign. I am laying my horn on the guy, all of a sudden a car yielded and lets the guy turn. It was an unmarked car and the person got pulled over after making the turn. I think this one is my favorite. Not a cop, but I was once driving on a very curvy road doing the speed limit. There was a car totally riding me and trying very hard to pass, get me to speed up. Though the road was incredibly bendy, you could not see oncoming traffic, and the line was solid. He had been tailing me really close for a few minutes when he decided to go for it and pass me while we were on a bend. Apparently there was an unmarked car right behind him. As soon as this guy passed me, the cop was on him and pulled him over immediately. Not a police officer, but I am in traffic control. I have stories and pictures. One guy got his truck flown by a crane. That was fun to watch. Another didn't know how to drive the heavy machinery and got himself stuck on concrete highway divider. That was freaking funny. Then I had one dong refused to listen. He could not park where he decided to park. He was warned to move his car twice. We had the CSO warn him. He refused to move, thinking that I was power tripping and just tattling on him to the big boys. Well, the CSO then hooked him up to an excavator by the rear axle and dragged his truck to where it was safe, then fired the guy for not listening to the traffic girl. It was officially stated as refusal to comply with safety authority and contributing to a hazardous workplace. Another time in butthole ran my stop sign. Then the ghost car behind him turned on his lights and sirens and pulled the sucker over. He was in a cone zone for double the fine for every infraction. Cop told me that today's tickets totaled over $1,200. I felt pretty good that day. LPT, obey your traffic control people. If you are friendly and kind, you better freaking believe we will bend over backwards to help you out and get you special privileges for being nice. If you think you are a special snowflake and are in butthole, you better believe we will hold your mother freaking butt up as long as we can. So be kind. We are humans too and don't deserve the level of abuse we go through. It was officially stated as refusal to comply with safety authority and contributing to a hazardous workplace. I love that crap. Where I'm from, not even the union will back you up if you refuse safety instructions. Husband had some instant karma the other day. School zone. Guy pulls up and passes doing double the limit. Cop at the end of the zone. Not a cop. Got to spur on into action. I was at a 4-way intersection where 2 4-lane roads intersect. And on the road I'm on there is one left turn lane, the middle lane which goes straight or turns, and the right lane which goes straight. I stop at the light that yellow as I approached it, knowing it would be red long before I clear the intersection. The BMW behind me guns it into the right lane, then makes a left turn on the now red light in front me. I laid on my horn, causing the cop on the intersecting road that I could see fine in my truck, but the BMW could not see to look up. Cue lights, siren, and a quick U-turn for the cop. Not a cop, but an amazing thing I saw years ago. County route near where I lived had a overpass with a slight hill so you couldn't see over the rise. Some idiot decides to make a U-turn in the middle of the road and start driving in the opposite lane. As he's doing the turn, my then so looks at me. Well, that's illegal. No sooner than the words come out of their mouth do we see police lights come over the rise heading towards said U-turn idiot. My instant reply, and that's a cop. I am not a police officer, but several years ago a highway patrol officer provided a beautiful bit of instant karma for which I never got to thank him. It was the last few days before Christmas, so the freeways were packed. People were eager to get to the stores to do their shopping on the way home, so eager that every day my commute home encountered at least one accident on the freeway that snarled up traffic. I'm crawling in the leftmost lane and a car bowled his way in front of me. No signals. Just took advantage of the reasonable following distance I was giving the car in front of me in the stop and go traffic. I was alert, but I had to tap my brakes, peeping in my mirror to judge the distance between me, the police car behind me. Then the guy who cut me off swerved over and crossed the double yellow lines to get into the hot lane. I'd seen that sort of thing before and found myself wishing there had been a highway patrol officer around to witness this. The lights behind me came on immediately. Traffic stopped in the hot lane and the highway patrol car entered the lane. I might have smiled as I watched in my rearview mirror as the officer began to escort the other vehicle off the freeway. It was going to be quite a trip to cross all that traffic and he was probably already in a hurry. This is kinda the opposite, but I feel as though it fits in here. So there is an unmarked police car that patrols where I live. Everyone in the car scene knows exactly which car it is because of the reg. It's pretty famous as a matter of fact. Anyway, the car in question looks just like a slightly modified car, and the policeman that drives it uses this to his advantage. What he does is, if he sees a modified car he will drive alongside it and try to entice him to race. When the other car takes the bait and tries to race the police car, the policeman pulls him over and gives him a ticket. Anyway, one day he pulls alongside a modified car that just so happens to not have a registration plate on because he had just been to a car show. So the policeman tries to get him to race. The guy in the modified car knew it was the unmarked police car and knew he didn't have his reg on. So what does he do? He floors it. After a few seconds the unmarked car was just a little speck in his rear view mirror. He never got caught. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.